for questions.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for holding this important hearing today, and thank you very much to our witnesses for hanging in there with us. It's always a fun experience when votes get called in the middle of a hearing, and I'm sure you appreciated the reprieve. So I know, yes, Mr. Spellmeyer, I can see you were very appreciative of the break. So as my colleagues have stated today, we are all collectively very concerned about the broadband, really the spectrum of the broadband programs are spread across the federal government. Now, according to GAO, over 130 programs at 15 different agencies. Now, I know that many of them have different standards and eligibility criteria too, and at the very least, we can make sure that they have the same requirements. Now, I tried to do this for the USDA Reconnect program last Congress with my Rural Internet Improvement Act. Mr. Spellmeyer, Mr. Hale, how should Congress try to standardize requirements for the different broadband programs across the various agencies? I would love to hear your feedback on this, and I'll start with you, Mr. Spellmeyer.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Certainly, the GAO, I think it was a GAO report
Yes.
that you just referenced, was quite eye-opening, even to those of us in the industry who are familiar with the programs, to see them all detailed. There is a need for standardization and streamlining. I think part of my answer to that would be conduct a review, do it through regular order here in the committee. Figure out what the programs are. Congress has a habit of, throwing one program on over here and then somebody else throws it over there, and pretty soon you've got 113 programs. I think it would be useful to streamline and combine some of those. Some of them are no longer, I think, completely relevant.
Right. So consolidation.
My message earlier was let's streamline the BEAD program and get back to work, putting fiber in the ground and using the other technologies that are out there.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Hale.
Yeah, I would agree that they should be streamlined. It would be helpful to have a common definition, a well-thought-out definition of what broadband needs are currently as well into the future. We talked about the programs a little bit earlier. And just to clarify, the USF is not appropriated. That is the essential program to make sure that networks are built, sustained, and remain affordable. And then, of course, the BEAD programs, the grant programs come along for a greater capital infusion when you still got market failure areas where USF doesn't work. So a combination, the USF program would be the best place to establish those guidelines, those standards, and if USDA has some projects which have been very helpful in closing the digital divide, if they could be the same standards, that would be perfect.
Thank you. And Mr. Donovan, what about wireless?
Well, I think it's important to recognize with those different programs that there is an inherent difference in fixed connectivity and mobile. And Americans want to have access at home, but also on their devices as you're not connected to a fixed connection. And so making sure that you don't lump those different programs together and you need you need both of them to have those two different uses and purposes. And as my colleague mentioned, of looking at also the difference of what is a deployment program versus what is a program to sustain that employment. Because ultimately there's no future-proof technology of any kind if there isn't sustained investment to keep it going.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Spellmeyer, NTIA added some pretty onerous labor requirements to BEAD. Now, do you think that these requirements make it easier or harder to find skilled workers needed to build these broadband networks?
Well, there is no doubt in my mind that they make it significantly more difficult to find skilled workers. And I should have added in response to your first question, I think the other thing you have to sort out is what agency is going to administer what program. That's a real challenge.
Well, and kind of going back to what you said, Mr. Donovan, would you agree that the requirements that we're trying to create some uniformity for across the broadband program should apply and have some, maybe synchronicity isn't the right word, but there should be some sort of mirror in the wireless realm?
Yes, and it should be based on what consumers are actually expecting to receive. It's a big problem we have in the current 5G fund at the FCC is that there's an artificially low speed threshold. It means that you're not going to deliver.
Say. It's like dial-up speed.
We could use your help fixing that before the program moves forward.
Well, on behalf of basically every American in the United States, we will do everything possible to increase the upload-download speeds that are so desperately needed to be updated. So thank you all so much for your time. My time has expired. I yield.